The 1990s continued to be a difficult time for Iron Maiden, but the guys ran through with determination, as they always had. Bruce Dickinson had quit the band in 1993 to pursue a solo career, and Steve Harris had the daunting task of attempting to find an equally competent and talented singer to replace him. He listened through hundreds of audition tapes before deciding on Blaze Bayley, who was formerly the lead singer for another British metal band called Wolf's Bane, dabbling more in the thrash genre than Maiden, but had opened for them in the early 1990s. Bayley had a distinctly different sound and range than Bruce Dickinson, which was met with mixed response from fans, who had grown accustomed to Dickinson's operatic and higher register. However, given the subject matter of the songs on The X Factor, Blaze Bayley's deeper baritone voice was a solid fit, suiting the darker vibes very well. The band began recording in fall of 1994 and took their time to complete the record, which did not wrap up until the following late summer, in August of 1995. While certainly not their most solid effort, The X Factor showcases a different side of Iron Maiden, with more thoughtful and yet brooding vibes, and willingness to dive into the human psyche on a more tangible level. Lord of the Flies and Man on the Edge, the album's two singles, are among the best on the album, although there are some very good tracks present, such as 2 AM, Judgment of Heaven, and the 11-minute Beast, Sign of the Cross, which opens the album. Today, we shall peer within the darkened vault that is Iron Maiden's 10th studio album, appropriately titled The X Factor. And a fair evening to you all, Iron Maiden followers, as we venture deeper into the darkest period for the band, the 1990s. Adrian Smith had left the band in 1990, and Bruce Dickinson in 1993, so the future sound of the band was on shaky ground, at least as far as fans were concerned. In comes Blaze Bayley, a superb and soulful vocalist who did not get nearly the credit he deserves for what he did while he was with Iron Maiden. The main reason I've noticed in my observations for the fans resenting Blaze Bayley era of Iron Maiden was that many of the songs just didn't have as much projection in them as many of the Bruce Dickinson era songs. Also, in coming to love Bruce Dickinson's style myself, I can see why many people would be off-put by the controversial decision that was made to recruit a replacement for him that sounded nothing like him, tonally, stylistically, or for that matter in his range and his stage presence. In examining my ratings for both of the Blaze Bayley era Iron Maiden albums, however, I see about the same consistency in these albums as in pretty much every other Iron Maiden album, at least when it comes to the spectrum of ratings from best to least on the albums. The upper end, drifted towards about a 12 rating, and the lower end dipped into the 7s a couple of times, but usually lower end was in the 8s or 9s. So now, in talking about the energy and projection of the album, here's the main reasons I give for why the X Factor took a tailspin, at least in certain ways. First, Steve Harris was already struggling with his place in life heading into the 1990s, with a young family and all kinds of socio-political issues affecting him more acutely with having a wife and children. Secondly, his trepidation in the band context, with replacing such an amazing vocalist as Bruce Dickinson, was wearing him down a little bit more. And thirdly, while all this was going on, he was in the midst of a divorce. And finally, to cap all this tension off, his father passed away. That's a lot of stuff to find compensation for in your mental equilibriums, whether you're a rock star, a mine worker, cashier, politician, soldier, or a movie star. However, Steve Harris, being the consummate professional and integritarian that he is, persevered, and Iron Maiden lived on, utilizing all of this atmosphere to create a solid album that delivers so many perspectives into the darker side of the human psyche, and musically this album is very rich, brooding, ambient, adventurous, and definitely fits squarely in the progressive rock genre. This is a highly enjoyable album for me to listen to personally, even though its rating is in the bottom tier as far as their albums go, just because it has so much depth as far as the instrumentation goes. I think that the feel I get from the X Factor in the ratings, at least, is due to the issues that I listed above, which is of course going to have a profound effect on any good musician's ability to project the more esoteric and soulful dynamics into their compositions. So today I present to you a more thorough look into one of Iron Maiden's darkest and progressive albums, 1995's The X Factor. Shall we venture onward? Sign of the Cross. It's got a really soft choir intro that sets the stage well for the overall vibe with these creepy, cultish, religious undertones and atmosphere. The intro, second half, you can really feel the apprehension, the fear, and the mystery of the machinations of religion. The verses themselves have some pretty good lyrics, and instrumentally you can feel the suspense and the fear. Pre-chorus riff, very cool. The oppression, failed promises, hypocrisy, and effrontery all felt. The chorus is very strong. Blaze's vocals are top-notch and soulful. Lots of punch to him. He really nails the higher notes too. The frantic bridge after the second chorus, there's vibes of disappointment and betrayal throughout that. And the second part of the bridge, the choir sets in again and he gets in deeper. There's heavier part where you can feel the ritualism, the pomp and circumstance, and a nice prog layout overall with the structure of the song in this passage to convey the conflicting feelings as well as the confusion and cloak and dagger secrecy of the hierarchy of religion, especially the Catholic Church. The third part of the bridge, you can feel the intensity as the protagonist gets to the point of no return, and there's a cool riff that accents that, and you can really feel the regret as he delves deeper into this mystery. The tempo shift into the fourth part of the bridge, I love that riff, and it really captures the profound sadness as he continues to wrestle with what has occurred and what he's seen and how he can live with himself. The fourth part of the bridge with the tempo picked up, there's a really nice riff in this passage, and you can feel his resolution to live with his decision. And through the solos, you can also feel some anguish of coping with the knowledge of what he's seen. Critical or neutral, some esoterics, just not quite up to snuff as other songs, and was just captured a bit better by other songs. However, it's still a really good song, so let's take a glimpse at what it got for a rating, shall we? And Sign of the Cross receives a 10.2 out of 13. Lord of the Flies, based on the novel of the same name, which I've been meaning to read for a while. In any case, there's a really nice intro riff that paints the picture well. As the plane is going down and crashes, the confusion grows as the boys are set loose on their own. The verses project a really strong vibe of the whimsical and single-minded desires of boys, their oversimplified views of things, on how they can justify their ignorant actions. Strong vocals by Blaze Bayley in this song. He really conveys the emotional dynamic of the lyrics and the characters as everything unfolds in the story. The chorus has a really strong projection of the tragedy of the situation as it unfolds, then the peril that they're all in from one another and their own whims. The build-up into the bridge really showcases the unfolding horrors as they're killing each other off, and the desperation and the isolation on this island that they're stuck on. The solos during the bridge also really convey well the tumultuousness of the mounting danger to everybody that's still alive. And also a nice build-up into the final chorus. The crescendo hits as the tragedy is reaching its peak, and the sadness, the confusion, and the cold justification of their actions towards each other. The neutral or critical notes I had to say, the chorus, while strong, is just a little bit repetitive, and there's not many things lacking in this song overall. Very strong, just a few hollow moments in very subtle and minute ways, but other than that, it's a fantastic song. Highly recommend it, so here's the rating. And Lord of the Flies receives an 11.95 out of 13. Man on the Edge, another one based on a movie or novel. This was a movie starring Michael Douglas and Robert Duvall. Very creepy movie to watch as everything unfolds. I love the opening riff to this song, and it really showcases the growing sadness and desperation and loneliness, the frustration and disenfranchisement of people in modern society. The verses have a really strong vibe, gives you a glimpse into the madness that can befall you if you become too mired in the tragedies and emotionalism of the world. The chorus, pretty soulful and impactful vibes. You can feel the atmosphere as he loses his grip on reality. The bridge captures the mood well as he commits the atrocities in his fear and desperation. It's a great song, very anthemic, does a great job at projecting the tragic aspects of misunderstanding and someone's inability to compensate for all the pressures thrust upon him or her with modern technology and civilization. Neutral or critical observations, the chorus, despite the positives, does have a little oversimplicity to it in the lyric department, and some vibes in the overall presentation of the song falter, not fully capturing the subjects, and is also a little bit on the repetitious side. So, there's the rating. And Man on the Edge's final rating is an 11.5 out of 13. Fortunes of War. It's got a somber intro. Guitar riff is a reprise of Afraid to Shoot Strangers in the progression. The lyrics are very saddening, and the strings add a nice somber tone as well. The intro verse bridge with the heavy part conveys incessant loud cacophony and the torment of reliving acts of war in your dreams. The middle bridge with the tempo shift and the riffing and solos are very passionate here, and you can really feel his inner struggle to cope with seeing and feeling all of the atrocities that he keeps reliving after being done with the war. The outro, it's got a nice cap to it, and he's still trying to cope with his situation, not confident he can carry on, but still is going to try. The neutral or critical notes, the intro verse bridge, while it's good in some parts, it does drag on a bit with repetitious passages, and it's a pretty good song overall, but the instrumental passages definitely feel like the guys weren't in it as deeply, not as passionate of playing, and Blaze doesn't project as soulful of a vibe in the vocals either. So, here's what I gave it. And Fortunes of War receives a final rating of 8.87 out of 13. Look for the Truth. It's got a somber intro, very brooding, and you can feel his losing his motivation to carry on. Everything feels distant and meaningless. The verses have some really good lyrics, very introspective. He's calling out his inner demons and attempting to conquer them. Blaze's vocals are doing a good job of capturing the vibes of this passage too. Very passionate and strong projection. The post-chorus chanting, it's got some good soul to it despite the simplicity. And the bridge first half, it's got a soulful vibe, hopeful, but also he has some doubts about facing his moments of weakness. Solos also do well to convey the sadness he feels, and also his resolution to tough it out in his time of crisis and depression. Neutral and critical notes, the post-chorus chant is soulful, but it's used way too much throughout the song, and it gets repetitive pretty quickly. Overall, it's just a repetitive song, and some vocal passages and overall vibes just not from as heartfelt a place, and it results in a weaker projection. So, here's what I gave it. Look for the Truth receives an 8.4 out of 13 final rating. The Aftermath. It's got a cool intro, feels very passionate and soulful, conveys someone's reflection being a soldier on the battlefield. The verses are also reflective with really sad lyrics, and Blaze's vocals are decent for this passage. The chorus vocals are strong and soulful, and tons of heart, somber vibes, good projection of the subject matter. This tempo switch over to the bridge, it's a really nice passage, and you can feel the sadness of this soldier's identity crisis. And the tempo shift into the second part of the bridge, you can really feel him slowly breaking and feeling hopeless to stop his strife and torment. The solos showcase the torture that he's going through in coming home and trying to reintegrate himself. Neutral and critical notes, some vocal passages just not quite projected as deeply enough for the content of the lyrics, and the arrangement is good but doesn't fully capture or convey the whole spectrum of the song's subject. Some aspects feel pretty distant and detached, so let's see what I gave it. And The Aftermath receives a final rating of 9.25 out of 13. Judgment of Heaven. Love the intro to this song. The bass does a good job conveying the desperation and depression he feels, but still clinging to hope, always seeking to find a way out of whatever troubles that he might be facing. Build up into the second half of the verses is awesome. That picks up the heaviness a little bit. Blaze's vocals are strong. The instrumentation has good projection as well. The chorus, strong. Vocals are passionate by Blaze, tons of soul and clout in the chorus. The solos during the bridge, and you can really feel his torment and also his anger, thinking he's being punished. The bridge riffs and the guitar harmony are also soulful, good conveyance of hopeful yet somber vibes in the throes of the rut that he's entrenched in. Neutral or critical note, just a tad lacking in some abstract ways, not the total package of projection or soul, but it's still a great song. So, here's what I'd be giving it. Judgment of Heaven receives a final rating of 10.62 out of 13. Blood on the World's Hands. It's got an ambient intro with a lot of bass soloing. It's very ethereal, very contemplative of the world situation is the vibes I get. The strife, hatred, and bigotry. The pre-verse riff is cool, building up for some strong vocals during the verses. And the bridge solos first capture anger and confusion, then sadness and resolution. Good dynamic with those passages. Post-verse bridge has got some nice ambience to it, and you can really feel yourself getting pulled into the abyss of the world's iniquities. Neutral or critical notes, there's a few. The pre-verse riff does feel distant, and verse instrumentation is a bit flat as well. And the chorus, even though some riffs are cool, it's the weak point of the song, and there's not much conveyance through that. Repetitive overall song, from the chorus riffing and the other passages in the middle to the verses themselves, just a little bit too much of the same stuff. The lyrics are also a bit negative, looking from the more destructive side at times, and it's a little flat in a lot of subtle ways. Despite the strengths I listed above, it's just not consistently soulful throughout. So, there's the rating. And Blood on the World's Hands gets a final rating of 8.08 out of 13. The Edge of Darkness. The intro, I definitely get the vibe of someone being in a war, viewing the foreign scenery, the somber mood about your situation, pondering what you've got to do to get out of there. The build-up. Through the verses, you can feel the desperation chipping away at his resolve, and I feel this very strongly during these passages. The heavy part of the verse, you can feel the Colonel's madness growing. He's desperate, confused, lonely, frustrated, and the delusions of grandeur start to set in. During the bridge, the atmosphere conveys the frantic pace of battle, the Colonel's insanity, the desperation of the whole scenarios felt very acutely, both through the captain's eyes and the Colonel and all the other people involved in the situation. The bridge verse really tells the tale well as he heads out on his mission, the captain that is. With so much going on, he's carrying out his orders, yet there's so much that's not explained, and the solos convey the overall insanity of war, the frantic and tragic events that it entails. And on some neutral or critical notes, while this is a great song, some projection just feels detached at times, a lot of distractive vibes that really bog the rating down a little bit. So let's take a look at what it got. And The Edge of Darkness gets a 9.81 out of 13. "2 a.m. It's got a somber intro riff conveying hopelessness, loneliness, and despair about your life, and also just plain exhaustion. The verses are really powerful, puts you into this guy's desperate and sad life situation. The chorus has very soulful dynamic to it, beautiful projection on vocals by Blaze, and also a hopeful note underneath the pain you can feel. Build up into the second verse adds so much to the mood and consistency of this song. Very nice passage. The bridge in the middle projects well the sweeping emotions that run through his head as he tries to cope with his life, the meaninglessness he feels about it, etc. A very strong passage as well. The solo's doing a good job also capturing his desire and determination to persevere even in his despair. A very good overall song. The vocals and guitar are especially good at projecting the song's moods. Neutral or critical note, it's a bit repetitive in the chorus. Some vibes during the first verse are also a little lacking and missing just a pinch in the flow and consistency of the overall song, and a little lacking in some projections. So let's see what I gave it for a rating. 2 a.m.'s final rating is 10.91 out of 13. The Unbeliever. It's got a cool intro, some tight cymbal work by Nico, the guitar and bass conveying self-doubt, questioning, and the devil on your shoulder, shouting in your ear, pulling you into depression. Very interesting dynamic. The verses are impactful, with the lyrics really throwing you under the bus of self-destructive thoughts that can course through your head in moments of weakness. The breakdown after the verse adds a sullen mood, self-loathing, and the acoustic guitar adds good vibes to this passage. The chorus is intense, and the vibes really hit a crescendo as his inner demons wreak havoc on his self-esteem. He becomes angry at the decisions he's made in his life up to this point. And the breakdown into the chorus also conveys the struggle in trying to think more constructively when you are in that kind of a mood. The post-chorus instrumental passage has definitely more positive vibes, a little bit quicker tempo with the rock drum beat. You resolve to beat the demons down and not let the doubt and regret consume you, your unrelenting perseverance to jump your own emotional hurdles in your mind. The bridge really showcases the powerful voices of someone's emotional weaknesses, the demons of their past, and the persistent chiseling away of your optimism and resolution as you make your way through your life. The breakdown back into the main body of the song conveying the triumph very well over these things, at least for the moment, but heading back into the final verse, you realize that they're never truly gone and they're always going to seek to coerce you into the more destructive perspectives and actions in your daily life. Neutral and critical notes, the verses, despite the strong overall projection, do grate on a little bit with the repetition, as well as some weaker vibes in the instrumentation and arrangement. And also some aspects of the song are just a little detached, not fully realized or projected into this particular recording at least, so it pegged the rating down a bit. And there's what it got. The Unbelievers' final rating, it is 9.54 out of 13. Okay, Virus. This one is not technically on the X Factor. It was recorded for the Best of the Beast compilation, but I wanted to include it in the X Factor recording since it was in the same era, and it was 2 years before Virtual 11. It was recorded less than a year after X Factor, so I'm going to include it on this and also incorporate it into the final rating for this album. So, the intro verses, you can really feel the insidious vibes of the power elite scheming and worming their way into our heads, attempting to control us with guilt tripping, finger pointing, distraction tactics, and playing on our insecurities. The heavy interlude, so to speak, is kind of a wake-up call vibe to it, pointing your attention towards the cause of the strife in the world, to stand up and fight for our freedom back through knowledge and compassion. The bridge also has some soulful riffing. You can feel disgust, sadness, and hopelessness that they feel towards the manipulation and power elite of the world. The bridge verses are powerful, strong projection, excitement, and an overall awakening of how skewed the world really is. There's very strong vocal harmony here as well, and it showcases the cacophony of the voices that these people try to put in our mind to keep our attention away from the schemes that they're running in the world. The breakdown into the final movement of the song is just amazing. Great optimistic vibes. You can feel the desperation too, the will to carry on, the compulsion to quit or play along with the games, and also your ultimate resolution to resist giving up. The rats in the cellar chant at the end of the song too, a very powerful passage, kind of calling them out, telling them they are not going to triumph, but also realizing that they might not be conscious of the destructive ramifications of what they're doing. Neutral or critical notes, the bridge verses, even with the strong parts, still have a slight destructive perspective, kind of angry and bitter vibes I sensed in certain parts, and there's just a few repetitious passages, and also some tightening to the flow and tempo of the song could have made it a bit better overall, but it's still a fantastic tune, so let's see what it got. And Virus's final rating is 11.79 out of 13. Alright, so there you have a track-by-track analysis of the X Factor and a bonus track, Virus, from 1996. Now we're going to take a look at the comprehensive rating of the album itself, as well as its ranking out of 15 studio albums. So let's take a gander. Alright, so in conclusion, the X Factor receives 10.08 out of 13 average rating, and ranking it 10th out of 15 studio albums. Alright, so as you can see, a pretty solid album, not among their best, but it's still really strong, and it has some fantastic songs if you looked at or paid attention to the individual ratings, especially the two singles and Virus were also very strong songs. So, again, feel free to comment. As of this, I have No Prayer for the Dying uploaded, and it hasn't generated as much interest either. It seems like interest has tapered in the last 4 weeks or so since I uploaded Somewhere in Time, but in any case, thanks to the people who do continue to watch my videos, and I will be coming back at y'all in 2 weeks' time with Virtual 11. So, take care, and I will see you then.